Salam alaikum to all the Muslims and peace be to all the non-Muslims. I hope everyone's okay. Um, this talk is going to be about democracy. I just want to say before I get into this that as a Muslim, I don't believe in like voting and marching and so forth and blah blah. I don't take no part in it. I don't believe it's Islamic. But anyway, um, the point I want to make today is that like you hear a lot of the time people living in Western countries. Most of the time, it's the it's not the actual people, but it's the governments, the presidents and prime ministers, and a lot of the time you do get like maybe some atheists and some secularists saying, yeah, we live in a democracy, especially when it's on TV and it's being broadcast to Eastern countries, Muslim countries, and so forth. But to anyone living in England, yeah, if you actually believe in a democracy, which I don't think democracy is something you should aim for anyway. A lot of people might think, why are you saying that? But I'll give my reasons very clearly after. I'm not against human rights, but democracy has got a lot of holes in it. But anyway, if you're in England and you're thinking in democracy, because then you're like amazingly deluded. I'll tell you why. Democracy is supposed to be the rule for the people by the people and the majority and so forth and blah blah blah. If you look in England, yeah, please tell me, since Tony Blair, yeah, was elected, what was the last thing you voted on? You don't have democracy. You think like you have some kind of power, like you vote for, think like you have some kind of power that the majority of the common people, they control what goes on in the government. But what was the last thing you voted on? What was the last referendum you had? Nothing. What is the reality of this country? Yeah. For example, in what is the reality in this country is that you vote somebody in, and they have their term, and if they do good at the end of it, you vote them in again, and if not, you vote them out. I'll prove it to you. Congestion charge came in to people in America. That means in London it used to be free to drive around. Free, it just used to be free and so forth. And central London was always busy because central London is like just near the city and so forth. People, tourists go there, everyone goes there, all the tourist attractions and everything's there. So it was really congested. So they said they're going to bring out something called congestion charge where you have to pay £5 to basically drive in the central parts of London and so forth. So, like, the word on the street and the word at the grassroots was like, we don't want this. We don't want to pay £5 to do. We just deal with the traffic and do what we want with it, find our way around and that and ever. So the government, everyone was saying this on the street and that, and so forth. There was no vote on it. And then what happened is that basically everyone on the streets said, well, we're not going to do this. I'm not going to pay if it gets brought in and blah blah blah. So the people were basically saying, we want it, we want it. Sorry, we don't want it, 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 we don't want it. It was clear to everyone on the street, and everyone, from like basically middle class and poor people, they didn't care. Upper class, they didn't really care because £5, like they don't really care about money. You know what I'm saying? They're stinking rich, so they don't really care. But generally, the majority of people didn't want it, and the government knew we didn't want it, we didn't want it, we didn't want it. But they said, okay, we've heard what you got to say, we're going to do it anyway. Then what happened? Yeah, congestion charge. A few months later, they said they're going to put it up. People on the street say, listen, we didn't want in the first place yet. We didn't want this. We didn't want no congestion charge. Why are you gonna put it up now? It's expensive how it is. It's causing us a fiver every time we wanna go to central London or so forth. Government said, we heard what you wanna say. We heard what you wanna say. We've heard what you wanna say, but we're gonna do it anyway. So anyway, another thing. Then they said they're gonna extend the congestion charge, and people say like, man, like it's £8 now just to drive into London, yeah, and now you're gonna extend it. Like, we don't want it, we don't want it, we don't want it, we don't want it, especially small businesses in central London, because the drivers had to come in and they have to drop off the deliveries, and customers, they relied on customers coming in and basically buying stuff from the stores and everything like that. So everyone was saying, we don't want it, we don't want it. It was known, anyone, spoke to the constituency and or anybody, any politicians that they knew. So what did the government say? we heard what you want to say, we heard what you want to say, you know, but you know what I'm saying? And the people say, we don't want it, we don't want it, we don't want it, but they did it. Same thing. A million people marched. As I said, I'm not down with marching. I don't think it's Islamic, and I don't think it has any benefit anyway. You know, a million people. We don't want to go to war. We don't want to war, go to war. You know, we don't want it. We don't want it. We don't want it. Government, again, we heard what you got to say. We respect you. We understand what you say. We don't want it. We don't want it. So therefore, um, basically, is that people say, you know, that they live in a democracy, and they say that, you know, we're free and that we have power, but you don't. It's the difference between what you have. It's even worse because you think, you know, there's two kinds. There's two types of oppression. There's physical oppression and there's how can I say, mental oppression or mental ideological warfare. So you actually think that you have power rather than your leader just coming to you and saying, listen, I ain't gonna give you anything, blah 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 blah, this that and the other. Yeah, they say, yeah, we give you one. You live in a democracy, everything's right. Isn't it nice to be living in England and America and all these places where you have all these rights and you have all these things and you can do whatever you want and you actually have some kind of power. And yeah, you know, but if you actually live here and you got like two brain cells to rub together, then you don't. It's not really true. Also, if you look, the BNP, I don't know if you lot remember in Barking, I think it was Barking, correct me if I'm wrong, but the BNP, they got more seats, I think, currently than they ever have had. And they were celebrating on TV and so forth, saying like, yeah, democracy is great, and you know what I'm saying, we're starting to, you know, we're starting to regain seats and so forth, and climb up, you know, climb up in ratings and stuff like that, and you know, now we can get our message up. Because what the BNP did, they started doing, and this is a big fault in democracy. They started actually doing stuff in their areas, in the areas where people lived and things like that. They actually on a local level started fixing things, getting accommodation for people, and actually sorting things out. So people just turned a blind eye to the fact that they believe that black people are subhuman, and you know, they violently attack black people and so forth, blah blah blah, blah, and started voting for them. And now they're the biggest, highest ratings that they've ever had, and they're continuing to grow. So therefore, like, what I would like to say is that that this illusion of democracy is that it is illusion, and that basically you don't have power. And also, as for the freedom of speech, you don't have the freedom of speech. If you go to first of all, you say you have the freedom of speech and so forth. First of all, if you can't even get to talk to them, Tony Blair, so what's your freedom of speech? You can talk all day, but if you're not speaking to anyone who's affected you, what's the point of speaking? Secondly, if you try and go up to shout and speak to Tony Blair, well, you know, it's Gordon Brown now, but you know, at number 10 Downing Street and this, that, and the police tell you to calm down and you don't, you're getting taken straight to jail. So at the end of the day, this whole thing of free speech and blah 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 and all this, and I'm going to make another video because I don't believe that democracy is the thing that we should aim for, you know, as a Muslim. I don't think it's the thing that we should aim for, because as long as human beings make law, they can either do one of three things. They can intentionally try and do the right thing, but do the wrong thing because lack of knowledge. No, they can either what is it? They can either try and do the right thing intentionally, but because of lack of knowledge they do the wrong thing, or they can intentionally do the wrong thing, or they can basically just turn a blind eye to everything. You know what I'm saying? And what do I mean by that? I'll make it very simple. I didn't explain it very good. Okay, for example, you have something in England called alcohol pops. I don't know if you know have them in America, but they look like fruit juices, but really they're alcohol. They look bright, attractive, very good looking. They catch the eyes and they call you. Now these are targeted at young girls. Now, and I'm talking about like schoolgirls and stuff like this, because schoolgirls will see them, schoolboys will see them, but they're mainly geared towards women. And a schoolgirl will automatically want it, because and they actually got alcohol